야다. 어느 제대로 담아 수신도 냐발라 패인
The
랍신
qualifications of a spiritual teacher. If there are such great benefits, page number 819 on of Essence of Superfine Gold. If there are such benefits from listening to this instruction correctly, then from what kind of person should one hear this extraordinary instruction? In general, with respect to teachers worthy of listening to the sacred teachings, various qualifications are set down in the context of Mahayana, Hindi Ramayana Sutra and Tantra teachings. However, the kind spiritual teacher from whom one receives a precious instruction such as this should have the qualities mentioned in Maitreya's ornament of Mahayana Sutras. So it gives first, in the next paragraph, 6 qualifications or criteria of a spiritual master.
또 진짜 네 벌써서도 뭐듯이 배로기 되네요. 고라면도 그렇죠.
So Dalai Rinpoche asked
to
stop at some points so that the Mongolian interpreter can tell the people where His Holiness is stopped. So on page number 19 of the Essence of Superfine Gold, he should possess the qualities of spiritual realization that subdue his mind stream through the 3 higher trainings.
야디 기겐 리아도 자랭이 쳐요와 저들이 이전에 라마도 자 개심샤를 했었네. 다들 인도 라마디 배나 랍제 기겐 집이네. 지성의 기겐 자수 개심이 대수의 기겐 신상하고 요와. 되는 신체니 개신이 개심이 인도산에 개신이 생긴데 아니 그거 그게 신인 그 생이 창고 그래서 의수 창 생이 창고 그래서 다들 생일이야 아니 되겠네 내가 라면 생일에 소식이 제 캠보다 라마 아니 기술로 변호사가 저자지 소소소 의식이 숨겨야래 아니 나게 대백걸이네 대대신도 지금 라면 생일 먹고 숨겨야래 다더 건데 파르도 침배 택배이니 다 람등내기 라마디 에네 도디잖아 소원은 신기 연대 주대시고 그래서 다 대한도 써야 돼. 투어 추중기 나와 쉬워 띵은진기 나와 녀월 쉬워 시럽기 나와서 라바 숨도 채워 나게 시럽기 나와서인데 도디제가 나올라 도디제가 나올야 가사가 다음에 쉬기 다음에 잘하셔 봐. 저들이 인도산에 러버 숨도 채에 시럽이 러버서야 돼. 가사가 담에 또 시럽을 나자. 나한테네 애는 망도 되고 룽구연다다. 대콘난이 루도 또 시럽 되고 써야 돼. 쉬기 다음에. 쉬기 다음에 또 시럽 된다 봐스. 다 로말레 연다 하버데 최모하고 랑가 되면 연다 주. 라운드스 저저 림버의 캐시 된 두진 나올 게에 막해 봐. 닝구루 소라 메다와 닝지 군에 랑데 최던배 구루 타고 자와 당 최셔버서 현존로 쪼에 전부터 자와 최배까지도 코에 로주 코르키 로주 미수베 도과방바데 시행 지수즈베 근데 시도된바도 추주된바 시도는 대신이 담바도 시도된바 내버 자신
And so with regard to the qualifications of the teacher, according to the General Rinpoche's Lamrim Chemo and Lamrim teachings, there is this emphasis on relying on a spiritual master, and then having relied upon a spiritual master, how to train on the path, as also explained. And so with regard to spiritual master, General Rinpoche says, as the text here also says, he should possess the qualities of spiritual realizations that subdue his mind stream through the 3 higher trainings. He should be disciplined through the higher training of morality, calm through the higher training of meditative concentration, thoroughly pacified through the higher training of insight. He should have qualities of abundant learning from the three scriptural collections, and he should possess the insight that thoroughly realizes this reality, and he should possess more good qualities than his disciples. And so here, with regard to this, these are the 6 qualities developed personally by the spiritual teacher. And so with regards to this, since Jerome Rinpoche says it's spiritual teachers are very important, one must try to find a qualified spiritual master. And so a qualified spiritual master means those who have the criteria that are given in different texts and different systems, such as the Vinaya, the monastic discipline. You have to rely on a disciple who, the teacher who actually leads you through the practices of the monastic discipline, to get sitting and living with the teacher. And then you should also have the precept master and the upadhyaya of the ordination and the precept masters. And then there are also qualities according to Tantra, but here particularly the qualities that are mentioned there are 10 qualities according to the ornament of the Mahayana Sutra, and so these the next 4 qualities refer to the next and referred in the next paragraph. So here, within the context of the 3 higher trainings, being pacified. In the second one, it says calmed through the higher training of Madhimara. Now, in the context of the training of higher wisdom, one should have a teacher who has the understanding, who is subdued through the understanding of selflessness of persons and selflessness of phenomena, and
지금 라마 인사로 지금 거로지 인생으로 도대체 뭔구지 아니 지금 다 가서 초퇴니 제제 지금 된대기 아니 가셔 땀 던든이 되게 가셔 지금 지 규자가 된데 던든이 되게 된데 용되기도 와 저상가 속소셔야 돼 시우지 개쳐 버려셔 내가 자나는 용액이 재밌는 나버지가 토송 그래서 로정아 정아 다시 또 정원이 쉬고를 eno pene yong nga lama de chi che ji ja wi yin sing de yong du s ani mi zu ta ba de nang shu ta ba yong de che ge ta ba che ji du zane shu go lama de kar ku go so na ki men da pa sha ku du s ani ya go chen men du so de nga sha so ani nge ji de ta shi chra chi di ka go chra chi nga ka go shi ta ke nga ja ha te ke che du mo 자, 다 가르쳐버려서는 철 대화여행 소수 계신이 있어야지 천이 근지 상국이 어디 셔버체 아니 천이의 상 누가 문도가 딱셔체 저거를 모아도 치통벽관의 여서 직시부지 인생에 잠이야 차샤니 대화치죠 말이지 메디셔 되게 이 계속 살다 다 속고 나리니 지금 추수생에 되는 딴데 영식이 저서 란네니 철서야지 야고지 뭐 주나 수주라고도가 수주 모두 가게 매우실 지금 여도 도셔야 될라고도가 소소시 계속다
So those interested in the Dharma practice must know, and interested in relying upon a teacher, finding a teacher, must know the criteria of the teachers themselves as they're given in the teachings. And then by understanding these criteria of a qualified teacher, one must examine them thoroughly before claiming or before considering and regarding them as one's gurus. And so otherwise, there are people who proclaim to be great teachers, but then what they actually seek is fame, name, and material gains, and then the worldly stuff. And I met one Chinese about many years ago who told me that many Tibetans come to China proper, claiming to be Dharma teachers, and then many Chinese also follow them. And then he told me that ultimately these Tibetans who proclaim to be great teachers, Dharma Rajas or Dharma kings, what they have ultimately come to China for are money and sex or women. And so he asked me to try to stop them from doing these things. And then I told him I cannot really do much from India, but the Chinese people, when you encounter such people, you should first you should first examine them by knowing the criteria of the spiritual teachers. And so there are many people who claim to be spiritual teachers, but they're in reality otherwise, and not really qualified enough, and they indulge in all these corruptions. And so in Mongolia also there may be people who are doing these kind of things. So if we are not careful, what could happen is that the Dharma that we have could actually be a tool, or it could actually teach us hypocrisy. And so it's very important to know the criteria of a teacher, so that you know that they are not going against the criteria. They don't qualify the criteria of a spiritual teacher. So the text says then he should be skilled in the methods of leading the disciple on stages of the path, and sufficiently eloquent to touch their hearts. He should possess pure motivation of love towards his disciples and teach his disciples out of compassion without looking for wealth, fame, and so forth. He should possess a joyous effort in teaching and so forth for the welfare of others. He should endure hardships in teaching and should not lose patience over the wrong practices of his disciples. These are the 4 altruistic qualities of the teacher in taking care of others. Thus, by seeking a spiritual teacher with these 10 qualifications, you should receive instructions and teachings on Mahayana. The qualifications of the disciples in general: a disciple who listens to the teachings should be impartial, have the intelligence to distinguish between the correct and incorrect paths, and be interested in pursuing the correct path. On top of these 3, he should have respect for the teaching and the teacher. So the first 3 qualities here tie in with Arya Deva's qualifications of a disciple: being impartial and having intelligence, and then having so even though you may have faith, if you don't have intelligence, you will not be able to distinguish between what is right and wrong paths. And so it's very important to you to have intelligence which you can use to differentiate between right and wrong. And if you're a follower of a Nalanda tradition, So with regard to the teaching of the Buddha itself, there in the Nalanda tradition, there's the differentiation between the definitive and interpretable teachings of the Buddha himself. So if you don't have intelligence, you won't be able to make that difference. You would just say, believe, because it is said by saying that it is said by the Buddha.
대바지고 있는데 여치잖아요. 그렇죠? 사실이 인도산에 순에 로데 대바서 돼. 애니야. 되냐면은 사기비치 남들고 써야지 심로 소주겠니. 그다음 생리비 좀 써야 좀 탁도 이다. 남들고 뒤리 순이에 인도산에 뒤 거든지 심 두고로 봐도 심 뭐들은 철로 팬통 말고. 개바차고 있는 팬통 말고. 사실이 인도산에 람양다 평등이야와지. 다디 소식기를 럼니견을 정도 쳐지는 되는지 다 람기규를 모두 줘야지. 타보다 탐지점에서 고만 줄여야 돼. 애니 뭐는 지다 가소래. 더 좋더라지. 칸의 셰시를 식상을 핑거로. 사실이 인도산에 람양다 평등이야와 숨 대대는 쳐도 좀 그거
되게 저희 어떤 박식 гэдэг маань юм байх ёстой гэдэг яриад энэний дараа одоо тэр 박식
So, as it is found in the study of Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom teachings, we usually make a difference between the interpretable and definitive meanings of sutras of the Buddha, and therefore, when we try to examine the teachings of the Buddha, some teachings are found to be interpretable because they would, of course, literally the Buddha may have said something, but then if you check it with logic and reasoning, you find that it is said because of some other thing in mind. And so, by thinking about by taking into account why the Buddha said something, and by taking into account what kind of thing, and then knowing the purpose of that teaching, so, and then if trying to see that if you actually accept that literally, then there are logical inconsistencies in them, and therefore it is undermined by logic and reasoning, and therefore you cannot take them literally, and therefore you consider them to be interpretable teachings like that. And then that is done by using one's intelligence, not leaving things just in faith, but actually examining the teachings well, so that you make this distinction between the interpretable and definitive teachings. And then even if you may have intelligence, if having learned the teachings, if you are not able to actually integrate those teachings to eliminate one's own the defilements that are within oneself, then it serves no purpose as such. And therefore, you also should, being impartial as well as being intelligent, you should also, by knowing the teaching, be able to take the teachings into one's to transform oneself, and therefore you should have the sense of pursuing the path correctly. And so on top of these three, then the disciple also should be respectful to the teaching and the teacher.
За ингээд бурхан багш өөрийнх нь энэ номноос ингээд аваад үзэх юм бол зарим юмыг одоо энэ бол ийм байдгаа гэж бурхан багш айлцсан юм үг байхад тэрний эсрэгээр нь эн чинь ийм юм биш шүү гэдэг яг ингээд зүрсэн юм хүртэл явж байгаа шийдэ бурхан багш сургаал дотор. Тэр энэгээр бид нар юу гэж ойлгохоор вэ гэхээр бурхан багш өөрөө ийм зөрөөтэй үгнүүд байгаа. Тийм учраас та нар энэ зөрж байгаа үгнүүд дотроос аль нь зөв аль нь буруу гэдгийг та нар шинжлээд зөвийг барьж явах ёстой гэсэн ийм одоо сургаал өөрөө айлцсан байна. Тэгэхээр энэ дээр багшийн айлтурч бай, бурхан багш өөрийнх нь сургаалч бай. Ерөөсөө их хөдөлгөөний дээр одоо олон янзын тогтсон тааллууд дотор бол бурхан багшийн сэрлийг яг одоо жинхэнэ хүлээж авч болох. Энэ сэрлэг гэж одоо нэг үгүй тэр одоо хэлсэн үгийг яг тэр чигээр нь авах биш. Цаад одоо утгыг нь ойлгоод энэ гэж хэлсэн маань бурхан багш маань ингэж бодож байгаа. Ийм усуудад зориулаад ингэж хэлсэн юм байна гэж ингэж одоо ялгах юм хоёр хэсэг байдаг. Тэгэхээр тэрэн шиг бид нар одоо шав усууд одоо багшийн айлдварыг одоо дотор нь ингэж дүгнж цэгнээ тийм ээ. Яг номын дагуу болж гэнэ үгүй юу?
So earlier when Solomon was commenting on the 10 qualities criteria of a teacher, according to Mahayana's ornament of Mahayana Sutra, in the Mahayana Sutra there is a mention of the third criteria being thoroughly pacified through the higher training of insight. So that one is talking about realization of having the realization of the self-essence of persons, because in the Mahayana this text, ornament for Mahayana Sutras, there is the distinction between the subtlety and degree of subtlety between the self-essence of persons, self-essence of phenomena, and then the third criteria refers to having insight into the self-essence of persons, and then which is grosser, and then the sixth criteria, which says he should possess the insight that thoroughly realizes reality, emptiness. This is regarding the self-essence of phenomena. In particular, a qualified disciple who is suitable to be led along the path such as this should possess these 4 qualifications. He should have a great interest in the Dharma, be attentive while listening to the teaching, have great faith in and respect for the Dharma and the teacher, and reject faulty explanations and retain good explanations. As a conducive condition for the 4th qualification, he should have discrimination, and to eliminate unfavorable conditions, he should be without prejudice. Thus, one should possess these 6 qualifications to listen to the teaching. Therefore, if you wish to become a qualified teacher of this path, you should strive to acquire the above qualities of a spiritual teacher. When listening to this teaching on this path, you should train yourself to cultivate the qualifications of the disciples. Next, this is how to practice, preliminary practices now.
Any dilemma that you're not doing on the any sort of decision that you're going
And so it's with regard to the preliminary practices. This is how to practice the path of the 3 types of beings after having heard the instruction on them from the qualified teacher. So what this goes through are the 7 limb practices, which comprise the accumulation of merit and also purification of negativities. And so in order to do this 7 limb practice, what you do first is to visualize. Imagine your guru, as qualified teacher, spiritual teacher in front of you. With that visualization of your spiritual master, then you do the practices of accumulating merit and eliminating or overcoming the purifying the negativities through the 7 limb practices. So His Holiness will just read through the text after this.
Буйн хураах одоо тэр буйны орон гэж байгаа тийм ээ. Буйны орон юм аа ингээ сайхан тодорхой бодоод тэгээд тэрэндээ одоо тахил мөргөл тэгээд зориул ингээ доошоо юм олон янзын юмнууд байгаа. Энийг ингээ та нар өөрсдөө хараараа. Би одоо ингээ хоошоо уншаа явнаа гэж.
Гоёа. Далай агяла 내가 지도자라 무슨 소리 때는데 봐. 처음에 저는 그런 적 없어. 때한테 얼른 눈 두르기하다. 저런 간절 편에 계속 키워지는 거 느껴서 재미있어. 얘는 심은 소시세요. 나와 사자가 내가 봐. 근데 소화되는 거를 좋아하시는 소리야. 나 뒤인다. 나 당고 네, 이도 좀 근조게 땡장. 내가 지도자라 무슨 소리 때는데 봤지. 처음 위험해 봤잖아. 레버션. 때한테 얼른 기중제. 삼바타관에 로드게 잠도 주던 데가 망도체. 참여봐 식공. 산지초도 소지 전화로 시소기 심기. omu sumbawe stadi do jangbe wonto chebe inbare ta nga chikti to sungshin lakbe gyoni ke yamata omu sumbawa shude ta omu sumbawe chötamje ranshin ki drube tongbe tongba ni to gyur 전에다 둘루 장면도 제베이나 고 교육 답들이 처지심도 봐요 삼바전에 몇어차 다양 나도 전신은 다 어디 패지들이 가능해서 동자체 지금다 그게 초신 계약서로 제베이나 그냥 동자체 간다 이네 돈이도 무슨 합샤와서 나가다 도움이 붙여되게 하래 그래서 돈이도 따오면은 나가 그냥 시작 가고 싶어 무슨 그런 게다 다음에는 가고 있어요. 당 뭔지 자가 주진 가시 대동기 조금 그 또가 되는 게 되는데 선생님을 따와야 되는데 영대도 봐. 선생님 이제는 무슨 그런 거 따와 매봐. 아니 사고면서인데 다 시작하고 그래. 다 매공소신 연구를 마도 신 가고 있어요. 선생님 이제 어느 순간에 최선제人주변 동반이도 동반간래 다 소신 세트야. 눈이 나고 생각이 전부 깨지 되게 무시티. 양시 자체에서 노조마다 나와야 노라네. 람디던베 랑라 람디던베 라마다 얘는 왜 다자가 또보다 자신 주기로 사무다와 사무떠기게 라면 거와도 대타 조주상제 장심 년도 랑게 보칸로各种 담제 자수 초기고 장장의 쇼벌 교루스니다. 야. 다전에 젠지디 너도 시기나 투지 생각도 투지 로군지 틀린 견제를 좀 너무 거지 실수 멀리서 지고 이거 시서 장장 추기하고 싶도 지금 시서 주간 개봐 추서 꾸이요 나서도 견묘 다당 졸라 시서 개 칠 다 초지신도 수수선에스 다들이 초지신도 수수서는 주주는 좀다 자 대내 사장은 애들 하나 두번 통말 사제들은 누구고 시서도 투지신 못듯이 도시 추수 때로 봐도 시서 남는 제로기다 자마토면이 나올 시서지 자지 주기다 연미 총지 계산으로 시서지 사무도주 대안주는 시서지 조 용기 계획신이 시서지 좀 미미즈의 지전의 시서지 제다 롱리선다 라지 싫어서는 루도게 시서도 지주 편수 시서다 근데 근중 시서다 하나다자 리버 라바다 시서다 더발라는 사제를 시서다 특별 투자제도 시서다 신유수다 제반의 창세 처벌이 시베 파르체스 되는 면적을 가양 용어도 대례시한 처벌도 시원네 되는 수준의 시베 파르 기사 상승체 내자지다 되면 왕겠니 시반의 정주 친구 시베 파르차 다 되게 있는 양라도 마셔야 되지 되네 너는 선도 남쪽 관시 당이 그거도 되네 추윤
dedicate to the Buddhahood, the seven limb practices are shown.
And
then page number 23 says, now chant the opening of the door of spring path as application to the lineage of masters of the Lama in a devout tone.
튼성 계속장 양전에 튼시초 도신이다 니샤지를 지금 튼시 튼초 양 내가 보면 내가 튼 윤톤도 뷰다고 내지기다 자 아니 뷰다고 지금 도도나 아니 매일 튼 정도 도야 다든지 든지 거네 다운디 고용만주 과시 심부체 되네 든중원이 자금주권의 공부차데스 나 검라 아니 검세하고 단다디 로 대강라 로디판 지신 공부해야지 로디 공부해야지 자 다디 강로 공부하라 캐스 배는 거라서 로종정이지 로종신이지네리 지금 락제 로종신이 집에 있네 드르테디 통화 남사디 신마로 딱고 갈래를 봐 애니 굶지 때 고민도잖아 애니 배즈chen 봐 배즈chen 먹어 봐 랑게 낭게 때 텐디베 자와도 좋대야지 연구도가. 나 근데 인도산에 안다끔 들다 룡하게 자야께서 말해. 또 이기 다 지가 소리 보기 남바스네면도 삼륜조단디 요었던 게 그래. 뒤다다 봐도 녀모 독송기 샤왕조 등에 녀모 독송기 배 다가서 샤왕도 등에 그렇게 매일매일 봐도 준. 그다 대자매바 셰다매바 띠무매베 개생원을 따도 둘투야지. 그렇게 다 겨지를 봐 둘투야지. 다 최최사를 들어봐. 최상으로 벽에 걸어 단다들로 쥐게 되는 거. 아, 저들이 인도산에 딱그 죄야성이 커지는 죄야소식이 샤주전 죄야소식 루부도 죄야소식 야말에 그림배 샤 된다 다와 로 아니 로주라 센도 센에니 rimbe 로는 요태야지 누구야 봐. 근데 군지를 라래도. 저들이 인도산에 저부지기 로컴베 제수시고 땡지주니 치료스네. 르도랑 르주어세데 컴베왕도 저들이스. 배는 가서 녀무 투숨 랑강강게 용돼야지. 녀무 투숨 콤치베 왕게 용이 되지. 딱고 갈래 봐. 요 치베이나 야고 지금 마콤베 공라 갈래 가고 싶지. 컴베 그도라 라라오샤지 용도가. 지나는데 인도산에다 안디 된중 딱 곰들라 니체 제바chen 곰야지. 다 제든 네베 된들이야. 이놈로 세시도 내 조금치야. 다 신의 그들이나 조금 소리. 신 팀멤베다 남는 걸로 자디디 조금 소리셔. 디 가르스는 로는 요태바라 르망네 그래서 로정이 거네. 되니 거와. 되니 영어래야 그 대박 거와. 대리야 이 뭐가 되니 뭐가 가르치고도. 네. 누구면은 되니 영어. 자, 근데 무슨 눈밖에야리야 그 dumzen 통니. 다 로트듯이 쥐토는 뭐냐 자네기 판도 영어. 라라 케벤도 판도도 사마지기. dumzen 통니 용도 다 로트 쥐야리야 당도 치고. 봐. 근데 이두산에 딘지지나데 라메 가는기 롱리 숭샤스로는 롱성 교 준비소지. 뒤에 개다 첨부리네 소소데 리베잖아. 저 라메 숭샤데 금쟁이 타နေတာ제가시 롱리 숭샤데 나 금쟁이 유명한 상담이 금쟁면은 롱리 숭연에 되네 자치심을 하면 너무 쉬워요. 저도 근데 이도 소 리버는 제고도 쉬우지 계셔보셔. 내 남주 뒤셔야 산재배 최냠내 차사야 돼. 최로도 남지기 싫어도 배데 누버로 차상 땜배 타네. 엔 디타네 엔 신에 아주 남주다 가서 우리 그게 랑강강게 용대하게 차단 모습사디 이는 좀 같아야지. 그래서 저 최로도 남지기 싫어겠다. 틀었다는 용하지. 추루 싫어 산다들이 잠바 시기요리 니지 시기요리 서변요리 시기요리 이내 저 대배 타는 거 되기도. 산재배 닝지인enda 대바인enda 잠바인enda 디디 균세 잡았잖아. 균세 그 통네. 아니 폐윤통 디 거버쯤제 통. 강다 지금 대바도 닝지도 써고 권배 폐윤통 마권배 니미통 된제 통네. 아니 공주고 다 배수 찍어 봐. 그래서 들이 인도산에 출로 남지기 싫어 잡았지 않으니 쉬우지 개쳐 모르. 야, 내 모습을 가셔요. 저도 남지기 싫어 그 자금 셔라 돈아 맞을지 조금 쏘 제대로 이렇게 요거 못 들으라지 나는 뭐시 버든지 유르고 검지도 sem 미도벌 검니 디 검ben 검니 로카시 심비시고 아무 나시 리버 세고 있고 민도시 맞을 생했죠 사진이 인도 패지 미도벌 검 나만 중단해서 가가는데 다 미도보다 칭어 패지 제중으로서 죄송합니다. 인도 철도 남지기 싫고 짜가셔야 쉬우게 하신 분이셔. 나한테 자금사들이 된중면이 자금이 관해 공부차돼 있어.
Тэгэхээр одоо энэ гэгээр төрөх арга зам суралцахтаа бид нар бяцлал хийнэ гэж. Бяцлал гэж яриад байгаа юм маань өөрөө хийх одоо
So it's important to always use our intelligence with regard to the practice of the Dharma. So you have to divide when you do actual practice, you have to divide the time between the actual meditation session and then post-meditation sessions or in-between sessions. And so whenever you practice, of course you do your real meditation in the meditation session, but then when you come out of that meditation session, even during the post-meditation or the in-between sessions, you have to consider them to be very important, and whatever you have been meditating on, you should not lose sight of that during the post-meditation session. And so when you do meditation, you can do it either in 4 sessions, the real sessions, 4 sessions or 6 sessions. It is usually said that for those who are beginners, you should have shorter sessions, but then more. So duration, more number of sessions, but shorter durations, and so that the durations are shorter, but then more of a better quality. And therefore, with this, what we have is up to the paragraph where it says, which begins on page number 23. If you engage in this preliminary practices, either 4 sessions or 6 sessions a day, then perform the departure at the final session. These are the preliminaries to the practice of relying on a spiritual teacher. And then with regard to the real method of relying upon a spiritual teacher, the real practice of relying on a spiritual teacher is through analytical meditation, it says. And therefore here, what meditation means, the Tibetan term for meditation, gom, means making familiar with whatever you are trying to inculcate within yourself, to meditating on. And you become acquainted with it, you become habituated with it. And so, as we say usually, that whatever you are used to, or whatever you are acquainted with, familiar with, you will be more skilled in doing that thing. And so, whether it's in terms of the worldly things, or such as carpentry or any kind of art or anything like that, whatever kind of work you do in the world, if you are skilled in doing them, then it doesn't take much effort to accomplish what you want to actually materialize. And so here one has to become acquainted with the thing in order to gain the skill, so that in the end you can do it effortlessly. And but then in the context of the Dharma practice here, we're not talking about gaining skills in with our body, or in by using our voice and being able to talk skillfully and so forth, but it has to do with this mind, gaining some skill in transforming the mind. So, in other words, you're transforming the 3 poisons, so that through training you become skilled in turning the mind from desirous mind into a lack of desire or attachment, and then having the non-hatred and developing non-hatred, and also lack of ignorance and so forth. And so the Tibetan word for Dharma or religion is Chu, which has the connotation of transforming one's mind, changing one's mind. So this cannot come through injection or any other called external factors, but it has to come through by using our own mind. Therefore, whatever you study, you should put them into practice, and then through one's own practice, day by day, you gain more, become more skilled, and then days and weeks, months and years can go by, and then you will become very acquainted and familiar with the paths. And so Rinpoche says that the very nature of the mind is such that it has the quality of becoming more acquainted. The more you acquaint with something, you will become familiar with that. That is the nature of mind, to become acquainted with things that you train your mind to become skilled in. And therefore, without being able to train your mind, of course, it's going to be difficult to make transformation within one's mind. And so, through training, one can do this more easily. And therefore, within the meditation itself, of course, there are meditation is twofold. One is the single-pointed focusing meditation, and the other is analytical meditation. To make real change within yourself, of course, your faith and trusting in one's lamas and the scriptures and so forth can help, but that's not sufficient. There are, of course, within the scriptures various ways of explaining things, and there are contradictory teachings as well. And therefore, what one should use primarily is reason and logic in order to gain certitude in the practices. And so, in order to change one's mind, make transformation within, you should pursue the path. In order to be able to pursue the path, one should have is the enthusiasm to pursue it. And therefore, in order to have this enthusiasm and aspiration to practice the path, what you have to gain is certain understanding of what you are actually going to practice. And therefore, reason is very important, because through reason, what you actually see is how such and such meditations are and practices are beneficial, and whether they are beneficial or not is differentiated through reason and logic. And therefore, reason is very essential in Buddhism, and with intelligence, of course. Buddhism should be practiced primarily meant for those with intelligence. And of course, in other religious faiths, traditions, the primary practice that they do is through faith alone. And whereas in Buddhism, reason is very crucial to see the benefits of meditation through reason. And therefore, some of my friends, I have actually heard from them personally that having done some meditation for several years, meditation on thoughtlessness, they have told me that having sat in meditation for so many years, when they came out of the meditation, they found themselves rather becoming duller in their mind. And so this perhaps indicates that because of lack of analytical meditation during those years of meditation, and what could have happened is they may have accumulated what is known as mental laxity or mental sinking, Qinghua in Tibetan, and because of that, your mind can become a little bit dull through meditation. So therefore, in order for this kind of fault not to happen, it's important to do analytical meditation. So things like this, my glorious spiritual teachings are the root of all spiritual attainments and the source of all goodness in this and future lives. Just like a doctor to a patient, the teachers are kind to me as they cure my disease of suffering. I have been wandering in the cycle of existence forever until now, since time without beginning, because either I have not met spiritual teachers, or even if I may have met them, I did not follow the please my spiritual teachers in whatever way possible. It would be more kind to give a bowl of food to someone on the verge of starving to death than to give someone as much gold as his hands can carry when that person is replete with food and wealth. Likewise, for me, the kindness of my spiritual teachers is certainly greater than that of all the Buddhas. The Buddhas, just as is stated in Nagarjuna's 5 stages.
Lama de never cherish, Sesam Bundra, Pua, the Jevis of the Zubuno Sobo, Che, Pangwa, Pua, Gululaman, Dong Zuboso,
On his self-born Bhagavan, the only exalted teacher, as he perfectly bestows the quote instructions, the Vajramaster surpasses him in his past lives, in our teachers. Our teacher, the Buddha, offered 100,000 gold coins in order to repay the kindness of one of his spiritual teachers from whom he had heard half a verse. If there is birth, there is death. Cessation of this is blissful. So he also offered up his closest ones, such as his prince and queen, even offered 1,000 butter lamps burning on his body in order to repay the kindness of all, or to please his teachers from whom he heard a verse. In these and other ways, the Buddha offered his body and all his that he's possessed. Since I am a follower of this Buddha, and I too have heard unlimited teachings from my present spiritual teachers, have immeasurable how immeasurable their kindness is to me. There are people who only feel grateful if their teachers are more erudite than they are. Otherwise, without any reverence, they boastfully say, I have already heard your teachings. This is a great mistake. For instance, even if your parents are not learned, you should still be grateful for their kindness, as there is great benefit in doing so and great disadvantage in not doing so. Likewise, this is true with regard to your spiritual teachers. If you acknowledge that someone who gives you even a little wealth is kind, then your spiritual teachers are all those who bring you happiness in this and future lives. If you examine this carefully, it is obvious that the difference in the degree of happiness and suffering experienced by all, from the elevated ones, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, down to the ordinary householders, depends entirely upon how they have pleased or displeased the spiritual teachers. Moreover, there are many who were led by to Buddhahood by their spiritual teachers in one lifetime. If I also please my spiritual teachers, with the threefold offering, I can certainly attain Buddhahood. Since the kindness of my spiritual teachers is inconceivable, it is of utmost importance to me to please my spiritual gurus, because even meeting noble teachers and being guided by them in future lives solely depends upon pleasing the present teachers with whom I have a spiritual connection. Thus, there is no way other than avoiding the wrong ways of relying upon your spiritual teachers. It is repeatedly said in all the sutras and their treatises, please your spiritual guides. This is not an unwanted injunction or a burden put upon me. There is nobody who does not want virtuous merit. All sutras, tantras, and their treatises mention that there is no greater field for gathering virtuous merit than through one's spiritual teachers.
nga lami ta nyam ni cha chi ro da de jin ba de da cha de ni du san ne sa do ji te ba lam lo du san ne ene la men nan jo sa de kya jong sha song de 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 yin du lam tong ma ko be ne ko ne ti la men nan jo de wu chen ni da ga de xin yi de zu gua de be kya ji tun ji chen song sha de de ji sha 오늘 남들의 신인들은 매배 땡징 가신들의 주변 입으로 찾거나 같이들 좀 냠나 신인들 지들 담배 추신도 냠송랑데 교는 레뷰권의 신도니 가신 내는 전세에 전서 20년 넘어도 하반데 전대도 제바다 하고 가신 주변 제바신 미두베 대나네 말이 소소무 가르치네 미르린지 토바도 동로도 마송하신 맞잖아 내닝 루어단다 신지 전두년 중 xianguru zhuwa shi de niguru so teni ji sanbe gune langwei che qianye lebe sung
So
du
when you
so
undertake
che
it
jia
to
kana
please
ta su
spiritual
bu ni
masters from the very beginning, do not let any negative thoughts about them cross your mind. By perceiving whatever they do as excellent deeds, cultivate faith in them from the depths of your heart, not just in words alone. Do this until the mere utterance of their names or thought of them makes the hairs on your body tingle, or until you are in tears.
저거 별거 차와신도 도와주는 인생군도 님을 내봐
Page number 27,
송유 앙냠도
final
쌈
verse from the Songs of Experience
진짜 되게
is read.
대대배다 계신이 돼야 돼 치견 죽이야 단 난기견 소소리야 단적을 누된 여유가체 디달라야
아니 다시 샤르 너는 나 소야래 너는 타잖아야 소니
네 친구도 와 너는 치야 돼 뒤에 내가 좀 모르셔 저다 되게 다셔가 쉬면은 시리 당진 머리 봤어야 돼 신유로 진로도 도된게 다 유로 진로 도된게 로 간다 신유 탄여도에 매된게 다가 가서로 진로 다 로지 차네 텔라 니보던데 요고 다 세버스타리 진로 로지 미시비 로지 대인나선의 진로기 정신적인 미시비 로지이나 대인견다 진단 개회 로던데 요바디 다 쳐져 다 배낭을 한서 지 가가 미시비 로디 가가 미시비 로디기 뒤 남짓이야 간다 여러분 간다 가가 시비로 들어봐 가가 시비 로디 남께서는 가가 미시비 로디 내셔는 거다 자 다다가는 시기에 진로 또네 가 칼에 상전된 게 진로도 로지요나 다들 가 수신도 시비되기 가 칼은 진된 진로로 대마다를 매우 잘 거다 자 들이 이르잖아요 지질로로 진신제가 달은 예보던데 이거다 예보던데 되게 지질로로 들려 뇌야 이버지 세워샤래 다 개체지디 지질로로 들지 가서다 레 간다 로人心 三种 직성 两种 그 등이기 로人心的 다 쇼규미 다들 상당하래 지베지디디 로 루그루와 라벨르 갈이야 지모디디 다 가서 우리는 정시제주 군도 살을 숨고도와 되게 타냐 라과 루브르 난데 여레마도 라과 루브르 로가네 뉴메 롱어도 집에 내걸로 뉴무지하고 뉴무문조 자 자네 야마 다들이 인도잖아요 디코 셰베가 세리기 쌈들은 신의 디슈야 말와 세리그는 신의 쇼야나 왜세모도 집에 내걸로 세리그는 시여바 인도잖아요 뉴무지 너무 연구로 됩니다. 제가 그 세리그는 신은 너무도 shum니다. 자, 근데 인데 너무 로와스 콜레야 너무던데 이러시는 대중리스. 와다 되게 진리치야디 그 내가 좀 싫어하셔. 다 가다 치긴 계신이 낭진 아니人工 대신 님부 여대 내기 다 가서 저기 선생님보다 대낭전에 아니 다와던 저바스전 쇼도 남지기 누가 여den에게 단적은 밀리톰 여대봐 단디 이런 남기게 조래 다 대들 친하게 되는 좀be 커도돼 다 남샤 땡기는 거 주고 그래스
헤르 아또 보이니 사통 쇼트 타다는 게 데레 도슬라 tegen 보이니 사통 어떤 쇼 좋아가 인 올트만으로 요이 헤 시스니 어떤 마음이 근데 상하라 아니 녹슬 어쩌고
So the contemplation of the up to page end of the page number 25, what is shown is the cultivation of faith, the root of the path, and then also relying on a spiritual teacher. And so, with regard to the reliance on the spiritual teacher, you even in the highest yoga tantra, when you do highest yoga tantra practices, for example, bodhicitta is necessary and it's indispensable to do highest yoga practice. And so, with the bodhicitta as the foundation, then you do the highest yoga tantric practices, and then reliance on guru is also taught according to tantra. It's considered very important, and so and then relying on a guru is the external condition for us to practice the Dharma, whereas the internal condition is within ourselves, which is to say that we have the Buddha nature within ourselves, which is according to certain traditions, like the teachings given by Master Sharava, and also the ornament of jewel ornament of liberation by Gambopa. The teachings are started with teaching on the Buddha nature, and then and therefore we have this Buddha nature within ourselves, and also we have the internal condition of having been born as human beings, having this life of leisure and fortune, as it's called. And so these conditions are there, and now what happens to us is that we have this distorted states of mind which hinder us from reaching our goal of enlightenment. And therefore, as long as you have these kind of distorted states of mind, such as grasping at a self, inherently existent self, and so forth. As long as there is this kind of distorted states of mind, there is always an antidote which actually counters, which goes counter to these distorted states of mind, so that you are freed from them. And for example, if you are ignorant about alphabet, then how you actually dispel that ignorance is by learning the alphabets. Once you know the alphabet, then you're no more ignorant about the alphabet. And whereas now just knowing the alphabet is one thing, whereas sometimes even having learned the alphabet, you might make mistake. The children might make mistakes, say recognizing identifying B for A or A for B, and so when that happens, what is happening is there is a distortion of your understanding or the knowledge. And so those distorted states of mind can be understood or dispelled by knowing A for A and B for B and so forth. And so similarly, the defilements that are within ourselves, the defilements such as grasping at true existence and grasping at some kind of a objective existence of things, these can be overcome by knowing the true nature of the mind itself, which is to say that the nature of mind is empty, and therefore, because the nature of the mind is empty of inherent existence, the defilements are not in the intrinsic nature of the mind itself, and therefore these defilements that are in our mind stream can be eliminated from the mind itself, because of the nature of the mind being such that it is intrinsically pure and not defiled. And therefore, for example, when you go into tantric practice, we talk about the innate luminous mind. And so the innate when you reach that state of mind where you are able to actualize this innate clear light mind, then all the adventitious negative states of mind will not be there at all. And so because of that, what this shows is, because of the possibility of overcoming these negativities that are within ourselves, because the innate nature is clear light, and therefore through these understandings, what you have to confirm is that the defilements are not in the intrinsic nature of the mind, and therefore by having the teachers who show us the path, and having also this Buddha nature that is within ourselves, which is to say that we have the possibility to become a Buddha in the end, and because of that clear light or luminous nature of the mind, and also having this precious human life, where we must take advantage of it so that we can reach our goal, the lasting goal. Now, blessing for the tea. May we never be separated from the spiritual masters in all our lifetimes. May we never be separated from the three jewels in all our lives. And may we make offering to the three jewels always, and receive the blessings of the three jewels. So page number 28. how to generate conviction in the general presentation of the path. It is extremely important to have an understanding of how to generate conviction in the general presentation of the path. Therefore, I will explain briefly on the two headings, how the paths of beings of three capacities encompass the entire teaching and the reasons for guiding practitioners through the path of beings of three capacities. How the path of beings of three capacities encompass the entire teaching. In the beginning, the Buddha generated Bodhicitta. In the middle, he amassed the accumulations of merit and wisdom. And finally, he became a Buddha. He did all these for the benefit of sentient beings. The teachings he gave are also solely to help sentient beings. Regarding this objective, there are two benefits for sentient beings, the temporary and ultimate, which are higher rebirth and definite goodness, respectively. Of these two, all the teachings that are given to accomplish the former come under the cycle of teachings meant for beings of lesser capacity or practices shared with them. The characteristics of beings of lesser capacity are outlined in a lamp for the path to enlightenment. Whoever, by whatever means, aims merely for happiness in samsara and pursues it for himself is understood to be being of lowest capacity. As is said here, a being of low capacity does not concern himself much with this life, but pursues the happiness of higher rebirths in future lives and practices the courses leading to it. The ultimate benefit of definite goodness is twofold: mere liberation from cyclic existence and omniscience. All the teachings given to accomplish the former come under the cycle meant for beings of medium capacity or practices shared with them. It is stated in a lamp on the path to enlightenment. One who turns his back on the delights of samsara, averting negative actions and aiming at mere peace solely for himself, is known as a being of medium capacity. Thus, a being of average capacity turns his back on the highest achievement of samsara and sets the goal of accomplishing mere liberation from samsara for himself, and to do so engage in the practice of the higher trainings, three higher trainings. The means of attaining the exalted state of omniscience are the mantra and perfection vehicles, both of which come under the cycle of teachings for being a great capacity. A lamb on the path to enlightenment says, one who, seeing the suffering within himself, wishes to extinguish the sufferings of others completely. That being is the most excellent one. As is stated here, a being of great capacity is one who, overpowered by compassion, aims to attain the state of omniscience through training in the six perfections and the two stages in order to extinguish all the suffering of the other beings. The reasons for guiding practitioners through the path of the three types of beings.
미지대 지기다 동니가 다와도 저 로로기야 가고 싶다. 지 차등에 집이나 당연라 탈베살이야 냐야 뭐 주나야. 냐라 침 원들르든 토야베 자지 자다먹베 최티거지. 땡크르지 당연라 좀나. 야 거래다 지 냐라 르버 당구르지 주버러. 내가 겨와 주네. 무튼다 람냠는 전에 아니 겨와니 길어 치료를 다 람지 떠봐 림베야 저도저도 돼야지. 저 배는 거는 좀 미스다가 차샤네. 미 나리아 지 로드 첨부유네. 야 배는 로드 지중 요되네. 량 로드 첨부 준비이네. 양지 지 단계다 지dengi 차와로든데 라베 남주 자시라 요되네. 제 최연량이 제가 거든데 남주 배터가다 그게 다큐는 매딩에 지기 근데 용되기도 봐. 자, 이렇게 양지 최고도 저 라부천이 배 신등에 셔버서도 마세 배 지금 섬이야. 랑강강게 배 kiến 춘주지게 교원도 대하로 용되기도 봐. 이게 되고 스로 공매, 스로 남매 지금 그게 굶지다. 근데 박사 유명이다. 캐 연구하러 와. 그래서 생리부터 타네 지금 레벨 뒤처럼 던지게 되는 대시에 겨도 제가 강성 요래디 이니 다티 어서서에 봐도 타접 시작도 와. 근데 뭔가시 나거를 장스에 사서다고 루다 그것도 규미 게임이 수저 하나도 안 되고 가서지. 다 스름 먹으면다 저기 남샤지 그 샤인도 자네 아니 배는 거한테 체면을 미진주다 근데 정도 많아요. 체득이 공발이야 되셔보도 와. 다 대중지단에 천디기 저기 kumshiru kashe tsengmame pakcha tang zhawa shakyu dhoji sayabudu. Sa jini yin dhuzane, dhala tsueba chebe yina, jik tsen dila ya lamga saro, roji, da lamga sashu sorwe, sashu chabu dhomo tunne, kanda gyawa chima milu toptu ya jigi, chadi chasang shi tuba yina, gyawa chima milu toptu, anda tsen dila kumshiru, kala kansamka pakcha shashabu, digi pakcha diya sayani, ya la laram zhayaji. Da diga no nemberu gyabche do simba yina, gyawagун도 양달라마던 레미 최지별로 lon주죠. 사달람지 연대 러서데 신의 송야와다 고림베기 로데야지. 야도. 자, 근데 이들은 그냥 당부대 치명문도 토야하게 교수 상황시켜 줘야지. 계속시도가. 자, 근데 인도 금들이네. 중산단의 로도 넘시스네. 단저 되시니가 지원메다와 레규저 코연님이 사봤으니 봐. 인주주야로 마치. 안들 럼름 걸이야. 아니 침을 되니 걸로 깨봐도 침을 대외 탑단 바스전 송니 그다음에 잠도도 렌제디 기우충 쇼가 나려야 뒤니 침을 대외 탑단 바사디가라 디쿠 사제 신 사공 신 송도 와 자어다디 로름지 타모송의 편셔와서 쳐요 어디니 이 기우충의 티비 김저做得了 강사름지 타모송의 편셔와다 남대자도 티는 기부집을 남기 또봐 게알이야 디디 그걸 투문 공으로 전에 줘야 돼 마도 디 남수벌 티 말이스 또 소들이셔
그러다 그런 돌격니 우린 지르기 좋다 너무만으로
And so the paths men pertaining to the three types of beings, which are the paths of for the beings of small capacity, medium capacity, and great capacity. Of course, ultimately, what we have to understand is that the structure of Lamrim is given in such a way that for someone who is of great capacity, the first two have to be integrated within the practice of the path, and so they are necessary for someone who practices the path pertaining to the great beings. And of course, when because of your lack of intelligence and lack of merit and so forth, some teachings like emptiness and so forth may be difficult for you to fathom. And but then what we have to also think of is we can first for such a person who is of low intelligence and merit, who is not able to understand emptiness rather easily, what you should be try to do is first create the causes for higher rebirth within oneself, and having gained a higher rebirth as such as a human life in the next, then you can also progress further from lifetime to lifetime. So after that, once you die from that life, you can still continue practicing the path so that you make progress further and further. And so in this life, for example, there are people who are we find to be very bright and intelligent, but then there are difference in people. Some are very good at worldly things, doing worldly things, and not so much when it comes to Dharma, learning the Dharma and practicing Dharma, they're not so apt at it. And whereas there are others who are not only learn Dharma, but they are able to learn Dharma rather easily, and they learn easily and with great less difficulty. And this is because of their past acquaintance with the path, the Dharma, from in in the past lives. And so there may be sometimes certain things that we in life may be explained according to science, but then it cannot explain everything that happens to our life, such as our intelligence and so forth. And some say that these things happen by chance, but that not doesn't explain everything as well. And so we can even see in our own life that the people who have some acquaintance, familiarity with something in the earlier part of their life, they can actually do those things which they are acquainted with rather easily in the later part of their life. So it shows there's need for acquaintance and familiarity with the things, and in order to gain skills and knowledge and so forth. So if we could prepare ourselves while since we have found this precious human life now, if we could prepare ourselves well by doing the Dharma practice so that we gain a human life in the next life, we can then from there again proceed further into the path, and we can then make our prayers such as which says like, may I never be separated from in all my lives from the perfect teacher, and may I be able to use the Dharma, enjoy the Dharma, and be able to perfect their paths and the grounds. And so in this way, in the Lamrim teachings, the structure is given in such a way that it is beneficial to all types of beings, whether you are of small capacity, medium capacity, or great capacity. The Lamrim is meant for all types of beings, to benefit all types of beings. And whereas in certain systems, like what are known as the four methods of turning the mind away from samsara, the meditations, the practices such as called meditation on the preciousness of this life, of human life, and the impermanence of life. By meditating on them, you actually turn the mind away from preoccupation with this life, the pleasures of this life, and then thinking about meditating on the infallibility of karma and the disadvantage shortcomings of samsara. You turn your mind away from preoccupation with and attachment to the samsara as a whole. But in the Lamrim, the structure is meant for to benefit all sentient beings. So hence the text here on page 30 says, hence training in the shared parts of the beings of lesser, medium, and capacity is best is the best means of guiding the practitioner to the path of great being. And then there are the three actual ways of drawing out the essence of there are the three ways of drawing out the essence of human life: training in the paths shared with beings of lesser scope, lesser capacity; training in the paths shared with beings of medium capacity; and training in the beings of great capacity. These ways of training are explained in the following chapters.
이외 당부 충분도 두면로 로중준이 로나도 실리 공내 개들 미르를 붙이게 어다 제다가다
기부춤을 다 남게
주제디 치명문도체 뒤주제디 미기 주본 그 수준을 해야 돼. 단 대대비 미기 주본 그 수준을 로비아 쌈디 배지 출루 전달에 배지 요래. 디리 인도산에다 출루 간다 가이니 배나 소주 봉한다고 출루 상마 배지 요래. 딘제기 벤다 나 소주 봉소다 즉 소주 봉하다 지금 꾸먹고야로 다 미스버다 즉 꾸먹고 살도 되지 다 출루 배면신 아니야. 디다 가서를 보게 지금 말했으니 시로다. 자, 다디 출루 타다 될 교알라 아니 군조숨로 띄어순저야 관에 소주봉나 아니 산제베 출치 죄송아 미기 주본디 산제베 출치 이슈 담바 머시가를 띄어수 치외 타네 배는 미기 주방야디 이슈 출치 그러대도 자 근데 인도산에 간다지 미기 주본기 된적이다 가서 우리 그게 다 추림스님도 된적이다 까고 겨워주 라블이야 돼 산집에 처럼 하려야 교수 저에 잠주 심부체니 잠주 럽지 공리야 아니 디본 기주고 달래 미기주고 수는 러버이는 산집에 처럼 것도 그래서 딩을 잠주지 그래서 잠주 럽지 공 아니 미기주고 걸어야 되지 다 대대비 잠주 나버 다 보지 용할이야 교수 줘야라 지 직나 겹쳐야지 지 직버지기 소수 지 민들이 된지 소수다 그게 당내로 치모트야 주나 겹셔야지 제거로 그래서 이들이 직나 겹쳐 소원하시 금들 문도 주비하기 견달라 랜저를 러야 직다 된저기 통에 이 겹수 줘야 시주잖아요 치모 동의지 동의 슈차고 예배 년주 동의 삼니 달은 직자견이 이 겹수 줘야 잠주디 그래서 다 된저비는 루동의 삼바디 남시는 영향소를 멤버 다시 다다이니 지금 우드 채소나 당연히 걔네 다가 치대 유대버지 사무소 호토는 대수의 섬이야 직자로 채다 직도 소소셔 지금 물어 그래서 이제 이제는 믿어보고 해야 돼 내가 믿어보고 되네 처음 믿어보다 믿어고 처음 말다 처음 믿어보고 하고 되네 이니 연주동이고 되네 잠조고 되네 렌저고 어디 되기 기우충을 쳐고 용서도 들이 치면 되니로 깨버당 치면 대회 탑된 봐서
Тэгэхээр одоо энэ өөртөл болоод те нийтийн одоо бүгднгийг нь анхаарах ёстой тэр баг төрөлхийдний мөр гэж дараа нь сайн заяаны төрөл авах тэр
So the
энэ арга зам дээр одоо
So with regard to the parts of the shared with the beings of small capacity, that path is meant for us to attain higher rebirth in the next life. Now, this is the goal or the objective of the practice of the path for small beings, beings with small scope, and then the means by which you lead to the higher existence or higher rebirth is by the practice of morality, avoiding 10 non-virtuous actions. Of course, the practice of 10 non-virtuous, practice of avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions is something which is common even with other religious traditions, such as killing, for example, killing human beings or stealing and so forth, are considered to be wrong actions by other religious traditions as well. And then now here, when you make this practice within the context of the context of the Buddhism, what you do is you have as the basis, the foundation for that is taking refuge in the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So by taking refuge in the based on this practice of taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and if you avoid the 10 non-virtuous actions, your practice becomes the Buddhist practice. Whereas if you do this practice of avoiding non-virtuous actions within the context of taking refuge or submitting yourself to Jesus Christ, then this practice becomes a Christian practice. So this can be related to any other religious tradition in this way. And then the practice of avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions comes as a precept, as part of the precept of taking refuge in the three jewels. And so what you have here is that you have a fear of lower realms of existence, being that you may be born in lower realms of existence, and therefore by seeing this danger of falling into lower realms of existence, and you don't want to fall there, and therefore with this fear you take refuge in the three jewels and recall the three objects of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then avoid the non-virtuous actions. And so the goal is to avoid the lower realms of rebirth into lower realms of existence and attain higher realm. And of course, here when you think within the context of the path pertaining to the beings with small scope, it's not just thinking that wishing to avoid avoid the lower realms of existence, but you may think, you may not, one should not just think that, oh, I want to avoid the lower realms of existence, but then this should have some kind of impact in you. It should be urgently done, and to not think that maybe for some time you will not be reborn or die and not be reborn into the lower realms of existence, but you must see the urgency, because you could die any time, and therefore there is a meditation on impermanence of the life, and impermanence of life, and then also thinking about the infallibility of the cause and effect, the law of causality. And so in this way, you within the context of the paths pertaining to beings of small scope, you have the practice of taking refuge and meditation on emptiness and impermanence of life, and then also thinking about the law of causality. And in this way, you train your mind in the path pertaining to beings of small scope, and then there is the means by which you attain the higher rebirth in the next life.
Ямар зовлон амс чийдэж болох вэ? Энэ болгоныг хараад энэ зовлонгоос одоо айж энэ зовлон хүсэхгүй, яавал энэ зовлонд нэрвдэхгүй байх уу гэсэн ийм одоо хүсэл төрнө. Тэгээд энэ зовлонгоос намайг аварч чадах, аврал тийм хүч чадалтай тэр арга замыг зааж өгч чадах одоо юм байна уугүй юу гэд ингээд хайгаад шинжилээ үзэх юм бол бурхан бол одоо яг тэр арга замыг зааж өгч чадах эрдэм төгссөн юм. Бурханы өөрийнх нь одоо сургаал номлол нь өөрөө яг тэр арга нь болж өгч байдаг. Тэр аргаар нь яваад зөв хэмжээний төвшөнд хүрсэн юм одоо хургууд хүртэл байгаа учраас бид нар чухаг дээд гуравдаа итгэж биширж байгаа энэ одоо итгэл гэж ярьдаг. Бурханы шинтэн хүн мөн үү биш үү гэдэг. Ерөөсөө л чухаг дээд гуравд итгэсэн тэр итгэл маань өөрөө орчлонгийн зовлонгоос айж тэр айдснаас айц буюу тэр орчлонгийн зовлонгоос биднийг аварч чадах хүч чухаг дээд гуравт байгаа юм шүү гэсэн ийм одоо үзэл санаан дээр тулгуурласан сүжиг. Энэ сүжигтэй холбоотойгоор бид нар яах вэ гэхээр 10 хар нүглийг төвчж байгаа энэ үйлдэлүүд маань өөрөө Бурханы шашинтун хүний нөгөө бага төрөлхийдний олох гээд яваад байгаа дараа насны сайн заяаны төрлийг олуулдаг ийм юм байгаамаа. Тэгэхээр үүлийн үр маань өөрөө дараа насанд одоо хүн сайн заяаны төрөл авахуулаад нөгөө хүсч байдаг өөрийнх нь жаргалыг идлүүлэх одоо тэр гол одоо номдо сургаал болж өгöd байгаа. Үүлийн үрд бид нар мунхархаа байгаа л ирэх юм бол өөрийн одоо хүсч үе жаргалаа энэ насандаач тэр дараа насандаач идэлж чадах ийм байгаамаа.
아니 니가 니불린 좀말로 숨이에 너무 충분히 통을 남는 로 중심이 로 나도 쉽게 꼬네.
이 밀루 좀 붙이 니까지 니는 대연자원 딘도 톰 두디
디 유림도 메네 니벌치 대양
가서는 신 내가 믿으베 다다니네 니 울려봐도 배 대양 대ങ്ങ편 자신 증숨 뒤숨식 초무로 신도 치다게 좀나 대ങ്ങ편 뭐시워 대양
Page number 32. Training in the path shared beings of lesser capacity, mindfulness of death. Contemplate this with full concentration. Although I found this precious human life, which is difficult to come by, but once found meaningful, they will not last long. Death is inevitable, yet there is no certainty of when I'm going to die. Hence, I must work hard to make the most of my life now. So far, people from all classes of society, high, middle, and low, have been swiftly overcome by the law of death, by crowds in a bustling marketplace. How fortunate I am to have stayed alive thus far. Feel the heart-wrenching sensation generates such awareness of death that you cannot bear to stay in one place any longer. Contemplate that when you die, you will have no choice but to go alone without the company of your near and dear ones. So this is about the certainty of death, inevitability of death. And it's also important to contemplate the uncertainty of the time when you are going to die. And then also thinking that, understanding that there's nothing else which can help you after death but Dharma. So knowing that life is impermanent, that death is inevitable, you turn your mind towards Dharma, and then by knowing that the death is the time of death is uncertainty, you decide to practice Dharma now, and then you think about the Dharma alone being able to help you, and not anything else to in the next life after death. So the impermanence, meditation on impermanence on death is meditation on a grosser level of, or rather coarser level of impermanence. No.
Мөн хүсийг бэлтгэх гэдэг маань одоо дотор олон янз байгаа. Нарийн, бүдүүн гэж. За бүдүүнээр нь аваад үзэх юм бол төрсөн хойш одоо хэр хугацаа өнгөрөх нь мэдэхгүй тийм ээ. 10 нас байт юм уу, 50 нас байт юм уу, 100 нас байт юм уу. 100-аас олоход дээш гарч байгаа юм бол тэгээд
so meditation on the impermanence, or in the context of death, say thinking that death is impermanent, as a meditation on a coarse level of impermanence. But then when we hear teachings on the Four Noble Truths, the First Noble Truth has the 4 characteristics or features, which are being impermanent and in the nature of suffering, without self, and being empty. So in that context, the impermanence is rather the subtle impermanence.
хорж чадсан тэр ерөндөг болдог сайн оюунуудыг бид нар хөгжүүлээд олон дуралтай хөгжүүлээд ингээд ирэх юм бол тэр маань одоо тэр ном болж байгаа тэр маань биднэрт яг дараа аврал болж ингэж хувирдаг. Тэгэхээр энэ мөн хүсийн талаар ингэж бодож өөрийн одоо энэ болон дараа одоо яснаа хэрэгтэй зөв юм ингэж хийж одоо чадах одоо боломжтой болж байгаа бид нар одоо энэ мөн хүсийн талаар одоо сайн бодох хэрэгтэй байгаа.
Covered Jonas bit.
Oh yeah.
So we have finished reading the part, first paragraph in page 32. Next is contemplation, that at the time of death nothing helps except Dharma.
Lungle sungure sen siba marda. Tadi ngaranzuda 지기 숙자 치료 렉셔트는 지기 먼저 통대 아직도 봐. 숙진 그 최식도 봐. 나데네 난그 녀아지도 봐. 봐. 자 녀스니디 지 숙자 사주자 코르프게 지금 누구서 창설시도 봐. 배는 가는서 류심니스라고 있는 류스는 창설시도 봐. 셈세디 녀여 되네. 소지 되네. 두시신 되네. 딱고 자와 레베 잘 때네 시바지기다 용기야리 다 이네디 실사고 간 신부이나 시바 차라 먹고 여자야 시바라고 저는 공에 시바라고 레바가 땡데버도 세버스타리 다드네 일루라고 다 일루리야 세베네고기 일루 밀음지 네고기 일루 니 투부코베 네고기 일루 개는 내가 그 일로 재미 개는 여자가 그도 그 일로 차라 먹으셔야 돼. 등아주 용야도 가. 산타 근데 인도산에 일로 차라 먹고 이제 돼야겠다. 일로 뒤에 간단히 규르에 등이 해도 와. 규르에 등이 뒤 규이 채워 봐. 봐. 그 끼지끼지 규르야. 끼지끼지 직줘야 돼. 지구다 차입니다. 시거든. 차입니다. 지구 친중기 규왕의 잡아만 임바. 끼지기 규 채버지. 진짜 규이 상황제. 저 차대기요. 자, 드린 딱 줄이야. 년龄이 주다. 현지 체계는 균이 딱 치료 소리네. 숙진 처리네. 균이 용되기도. 자, 드린 인도산에 난기 셰바 뇽좀 릭성기 최디에 그 요원 주고 예바 인도 교예바 다 추사래. 요런 년齡이 주다. 현지 체계는 균이 없고. 딱 년齡이 주 상던데 치자기 년齡이 주도 그 자지고. 스미 펜부 최디기 년齡이 주도 스미 펜부지 구도와. 배나 저분기 년齡이 주도 자지고 하다. 어다 되는 시체는 난 셰바 세서 뇽좀 그 등이 쟁기 레비체디 년齡이 주디 대다 릭투부지 거로다. 봐. 자, 드린 스미 펜부 셈기 년齡이 주치도 말해. 셈기 스미 펜부 년齡이 주치도 야 말해. 자, 든데스 상당히 전에 남신 멤버 남식이 년龄 멤버치야 줍스는 남진아 송샤디. 자, 든데 인도다 디단도 상담이나 경험이 만드는 다 양을 로고를 지어래. 양은 지들 거 그랬어. 다 디간에 디간 하나만 로고고야래. 다 디체네 마대고 먹고도 와. 자, 든데 인도잖아 디 셰바 기진가 망가면 년齡이 줄래마 다 영대가 지금 삼을 담이나 뒤직 삼도 하시도 와. 얘네 든데 인도잖아 내도 뉴스 잘못하고 셰바디 년齡이 줄라 셰바 기진가 맞추 요구하지 배지 서비스. 디더라 된세직디 경험을 전에 용도 와. 배지 chanzo 소변 안에 경험을 전에 딴데 용구지 유지를 배변 안에 용데 내 모습이 작아를 드는 알아래 파먼 믹스의 철 타바시라게 매딩인데 부구 경험을 싸고 시부 청년인데 나의 투투스데 그래서 그 전주주연이 전개주연을 잡아봤다. 그봐. 자, 이제 인도산에 경험이 예배 쳐다 매배 쳐다지나 경험이 예배 쳐다 주지 마요. 경험이 야말을 써야 돼. 다 주지 사나 야말다. 양을 다 소수 취기고 롱레 숨기 있다. 경험이 야말 천지지된 거버버 거버려서 그렇죠. 양은 다 제, 나중에 내 통금도 왔으네. 다 타돈 들이. 그봐. 레마도 주지 양다고 셔야 가고도. 예배 쳐도 주지 먹고 셔야 돼.
Тэгэхээр бид нар орны утгыг болоод олон төрөл дамжин гэж үзэж байгаа.
So with regard to the rebirth or reincarnation, talking about having being reborn in the next life and so forth, we are not saying that there is next life because the scriptures say so. But what we have to understand is that within the things around us, we can of course see the different forms of things, and we can hear the sound, and there are of course tactile things which can touch and so forth, which are external to us. And so they themselves have their own causes and conditions, and within the causes and conditions, of course, there are those of the what we call the substantial cause and cooperative conditions of these things. And so they bring, because of their substantial cause and these cooperative conditions, things are born, things are produced. And so each thing has their own substantial condition, and which actually the cause itself turns into the result. And then there are other cooperative conditions which actually nurture the actual primary cause. And similarly, in the internal experience of mind, we have the various experiences of feeling, sensations, recognition, and so forth. And so these different states of mind are there, which are mere experience. And so, of course, with regard to the mind itself, there may be some role of a brain neurons giving rise to very gross states of mind, very coarse states of mind. But then when it like those of the sensory perceptions can be given rise to by brain by the effect of brain. But then when it comes to the mental consciousness, of course within the mental consciousness we have the consciousness at the waking state, dreaming state, deep sleep state, and then also at the time of fainting, when we become become unconscious. And so there are various degrees of subtlety within the mind. But all of these, whether they are gross states of mind or subtle states of mind, they are all changeable. They all change. They have the nature of changing momentarily. So that momentary change is not brought about by any third factor, but the very cause which actually produces them, gives rise to them, are the cause for them to undergo change and destruction. And therefore, within the mind also, there are the substantial cause and the cooperative conditions. For example, we can see if we have a clay pot, the substantial cause of a clay pot is the clay, the mud itself, and then the water and other factors are the contributing factors. And then because of all these coming together, we have a clay pot. And so similarly, in the case of the mind, a mind must have its own substantial cause, which cannot be, on the one hand, and it cannot be something which is not a mind, and there are going to be lots of logical fallacies if we were to assert that mind comes from something which is not mind, or consciousness comes from something which is not a consciousness. For example, if we were to accept that the rebirth as being on the basis of the mind, first of all, what we actually posit the theory of reincarnation. And so if we were to so this is based on the understanding that mind has its own substantial primary cause, which gives rise to next moment of mind. And so on the basis of this continuity of the mind, as there being the substantial cause of mind which gives rise to a next state of mind, then we assert that of reincarnation. So rebirth or reincarnation, if we have to accept it by saying that, oh, it's a creation of God, of course we may be able to say that, but then it's problematic when you assert this kind of theory. Whereas we can see in our own, in the world today, even today, that there are people who are able to remember their past lives. And there may be Mongolians also who are able to remember their past lives. In India also, there have been many cases, and I have known some of them personally. The parents of those children who were born, who were able to remember their past life, were not particularly religious people, but then the children were able to confirm their past the parents of their past lives and so forth. So there are cases like that. And so asserting the past and the future lives is based on reason and not just scriptural quotation. And if you, of course, there are people who say there is no such thing as past and future lives, and if you were to press them further why it is so, they would have to either say, just because I don't see it, or they would have to resort to something else. But in any case, there's no real good reason to reject rebirth. Whereas if you assert past and future lives, there's more reason to it that you can back up your assertion with.
Библи гэх юм уу өөрийн одоо ертөнцийн эзний одоо сургаал номлол гэсэн ишлэл гэсэн ийм юмд тулж байгаа. Түүнээс өөр одоо юм илж ярих юм бол юм байхгүй байгаа. Эсрэгээр нь одоо ингээд тэр хоёрын ялгааг ингээд хараад үзэх юм бол урд хой төрөл байгаа гэдэгтэр шинж тухааны талаас одоо дэмжлэг маш олон.
So the text says, even after death I will not turn into nothing, but will certainly be reborn. As for rebirth, I will either be reborn in the fortunate or unfortunate realms of existence, or nowhere else. That too is determined by actions over which I will have no control. I will have to take rebirth, propelled by my positive or negative actions. If wholesome thoughts arise in me at the time of my dying, then I will be born into the fortunate realms of existence, whereas if unwholesome thoughts arise at that time, well, then I will be born into one of the three unfortunate realms and suffer intensely.
Шилүү би харж чадахгүй байна. Энийг одоо та нар байгаа гэж яаж бодож байгаа гэсэн ийм л хэлж байгаа. Эцээцээс тэр хувь хүний л нэг үзэл тулдаг. Тэрнээс нийтийн одоо тэр үзэл баримтал яг одоо гарт баригдсан шалтгаантай ийм юмнуудыг бодлогоор зөвхөн өөрийн хувийн үзлээр л надад харагдахгүй байна. Тэгэхээр энэ урт төрөл чинь байхгүй гэж эцээц нэг ийм л юм яриад байгаа маа.
조선. 뭐야? 교화신의
그래서 교화야 된도던 년도 그러는
대양 내기 왕 마도 원하는 밀대 가나 이거라. 대양 치에서 계시면도 주나 치면 된 거기. 대세미기 있으면 주나 치면 된 거서 고르게 되니 도면 잡고 연구. 내는 도면 치도 연구 공부를 주기. 저도 사실 정말 영원히 뭐 주시다. 조금 더 가지고 이다다 잡아. 몸에 도면 Rama Jasunda Jamara, Tigunama, Tigujet,
only me. Tell to soon as you go to the Java, she is water, Nyawano, Saranga to me, 7 minutes, Idano, the Jagun to me, 7 minutes.
Reflecting on suffering of the lower realms, what are the kinds of suffering in the unfortunate realms? Lord Nagarjuna says, each day recall the intense hot and cold hell realms. Remember also the hungry ghosts who are initiated by hunger and thirst. See and reflect on the animals who are full of suffering, of stupidity. Abandon the causes of these and cultivate the causes of fortunate realms. Having obtained the hard-won human life on this earth, be alert to sever the causes of unfortunate rebirths. As said above, there are unbearable sufferings of heat and cold in the hell realms. The hungry ghosts experience unendurable sufferings of hunger and thirst, and the animals unbearable sufferings of preying upon one another, stupidity and foolishness, and so forth. At present, I cannot tolerate holding out my hand in a blazing fire, even for a moment. I cannot tolerate staying naked, even for a day in the bitter cold of winter. I cannot tolerate staying hungry for several days on end. I cannot even tolerate the sting of a bee, and so on. How then could I tolerate the sufferings of hot and cold hell realms, the sufferings of hunger and thirst of the hungry ghost realm, and the suffering of devouring each other alive, and so forth of the animal realm? So, based on your own experience, now meditate on the torments of the lower realms until the fear and terror of the sufferings of these realms overwhelms you. Thus contemplate, having found this excellent life of a human being, now I shall strive to avoid rebirth in the unfortunate realms by discarding their causes and cultivating the causes of higher realms. Training in the practice of refuge, the gateway to Dharma. Bodhidharma, how should one strive to avoid birth in the unfortunate realms? As explained above, you should fear the sufferings of lower realms and think that the three jewels have the power to protect you from them. Knowing this, take refuge in the three jewels from the depths of your heart. Indeed, the three jewels can protect you from the fears of the unfortunate realms from the terrors of the unfortunate realms, because the jewel is himself free from all fears, is skilled in the methods of freeing others from all fears, engages in great compassion towards all sentient beings, impartially, and works for all, no matter whether they have benefited him or not. Hence, he is a worthy object of refuge. This also holds true for the Dharma jewel and Sangha jewel. The teachers, doctrines, spiritual communities, and non-Buddhist schools do not have any other of these qualities. Hence, they are not worthy objects of refuge. Hence, the three jewels have these qualities. They are worthy of objects of. Since the three jewels have these qualities, they are worthy of objects of refuge. Worthy objects of refuge. How should you seek refuge? You should sincerely go for refuge in the three jewels by entrusting yourself to them completely while chanting, "I go for refuge to the Buddha, the supreme among human beings. Please be my teacher to free me from the sufferings of samsara and the unfortunate realms. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the supreme among all those free from desire. Please be my real refuge to free me from the sufferings of samsara and the lower realms. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the supreme among all communities. Please be my spiritual companions to free me from the sufferings of samsara and the unfortunate realms."
강시 태송 기뉴고 대기 동반 이된데 니니코는 이시지 하소야. 된들을 공니 아니 남자들 나래 소요토는 밀리치 샤르시스 바고 인신 송샤다 되지도 와. 저다디 리베체 하지도 와. 자우스니 타사고 리베체 조가 저래마도 저산이까지 신도 쇼마다. 저디네 가시도 와. 직신. 단지네 내리면도 산지 숨을 쉬다고는 이치 니버 전에 아니 그래서
뭐시다 미국을 동네 중앙에는 제대로 해야
So thus having taken refuge in the rituals, if you do not follow the precepts of taking refuge for your refuge practices will degenerate. Hence train yourself in the precepts of refuge. In fact, once you have taken refuge in the Buddha, you should no longer regard the fierce worldly gods such as Vishnu and others as objects of refuge, but you should perceive all images of Buddhas as real Buddhas and respect them. Once you have taken refuge in the Dharma, you should cease to harm and sentient beings. You should never disrespect even a single letter of scripture and show them respect. Once you have taken refuge in the Sangha, you should not associate or become intimate with heretics and evil friends.
아니 산제디 멤버든 저 최디 멘던 저 긴뉴디 내야던 저 그래서 내 모든 생에 맨제들 마도 산제 마마 산제 멤버든 저 되기 맨 지켜 그래서 멘던 저다 산제 랑도 원네 좀전데 숨 다리 겹도 먹었지 겹놈한테 최 랑도 냥린체 근데 랑도 매를 타와야지 그런데 얘는 미기 주는 거 주를 넣니 년주 집을 타 년주 개와 타와지 않던데
So with regard to the three jewels, the Buddha is the teacher, considered as the teacher, the Dharma as the actual refuge, and then we have the Sangha jewel as the assistance on the path. And so as it's usually explained in terms of the Buddha being like the doctor, and the Dharma being like they're analogous to medicine, and the Sangha being analogous to a nurse, the actual thing that actually saves us from suffering and lower realms of existence in this context, for example, is the Dharma jewel. And the Buddha is the one who has taught us the path to get out, to avoid that lower birth into lower realms. And then the Sangha are those who assist us on the path. And so in the context of this path of lower realms, path pertaining to the beings of lower scope, it is the teaching pertaining to avoiding the non-virtuous actions which would otherwise lead us to lower realms of existence and to be free from there. We have the practices pertaining to the beings of small scope. So earlier His Holiness made this comment about the karma.
차와봉 마음에다 그 사바서 전바 가지 좀 되잖아 그거 저 전시 때는 말아도 그냥 뭐 먹어서지 개들이고 그거는 때 진미냐 보면서 뭐 동안은 뭐 가도 되는데 치주에다가 되고는 뜻이잖아 거는 샤바라샤는 먹고 좀 뛰면 막 보는 거 봐서고 제라매장 남쪽으로 생이 사는데 많이 봐도 사주면 대이 마상을 왜 줄어로 고순들도 되면 뭐 하관리비 좀 안내 집에 좀 뜻이 상황 템버지 시송배소 대단한 거에 천재도 로로도 70% 된이도 주민 남계번은 기부 중간으로 로자바 라지 중앙이노 다들은 이번 기분 증당 통문을 나눠서 장원이 대단한 미기 주방신 개와조 양소랑 왜 투리기 때 개발지도 통면 거기 동네는 만대배 대나 동네 찾아보면 타바시 더 거서 원아
patient 39, journeying in the paths shared with beings of medium scope, capacity.
코 토면 타다 양다 너도 재미를 되는 소바 대대 그런 줄을 좀 따다 양 동해지는 실례 만데디 민음이 껴와나 마이네 딱게가는 시동에도 쓴 거야. 나중에 아주 통실을 이렇게 쓰셔 봐다. 간다 동해 개사바세야지 좀 미개가는 시동에든 제 탄에 쓴 거야. 이제잖아요. semblea ci ne ban den ya ko tong chu de ba yin du shuk shuk bu do wa chen da jiao na ma yin ne me na zhen na wa zhen jin mo su ne de me ji ji me jiao na sha sha dun zhao suo jie ba la me lai ji lu me de ju mi la ma de ba ma de zi wa da xin du du ne wa da ma zai ne ni ma xin de zhen me de na sha wa de chen me zhe du 说的东西是什么吧？娘说呢嘛，那么这个东西就是我有在呢，绿朗说大了吧，我就问你，人别给把你就是公公，你们这么多的搞了这玩意，这点这里面给，特别是给他什么都，我当然是心思那么多的嘛，这我妈那这地方都能绿不，没那说就绿色雨色没中，绿景当年吧，那个热的我这么年呗。 前手动双脚干什么其他人都要进入龙卷面才拍这设备，修完了有的时候改变东西的。绿金如果差嘛就或者错的面，那个车七八八干嘛那个下就手动移动哇，那么那老跑道帮个移动嘛，手动面老是我们的许多单个，但是说的这说不那么单个呢，没说的那东西帮到我用过吧，那个东西，去年边呢，这不是那这不台湾那么7个人写。
Page number 40, good paragraph, when stricken with fatal disease, we repent our past unwholesome actions. We know this human life has been wasted on us. We are aware of separation from our body, possessions, family, friends, attendants, servants. Our mouth dries up, lips remain agape, nose deflate, eyes sink in and breath comes in gaps. Gasp, we are terrorized by the intense suffering of unfortunate these are the sufferings of dying in spite of your reluctance to die. Sometimes we meet with unwanted adversaries, bandits and thieves who rob all our food and wealth. They strike our body with weapons, clubs and so on. At times we are tortured with various punishments at the hands of kings and so forth. Or we suffer on hearing dreadful news. Such are the sufferings of meeting with unpleasant experiences. So these are the suffering of unwillingly separating from all wealth and possessions that have obtained, that you have obtained by enduring hardships and spiteful rumors and forfeiting personal happiness and reluctantly being kept apart from objects of your heart's desire. With regard to suffering of not getting what one wants, despite looking for it, they are. In the case of lay people, for example, not achieving the desired harvest in spite of toiling on their farmlands due to drought, frost, hail, and so forth. For those sailing ships, storms bringing disaster, if you are a merchant, you may either lose your goods or fail to make a profit, and so on. Monks and nuns suffer from their inability to observe the vows they have taken, so these are sufferings of not attaining what you wish. No sooner than we have taken on this appropriated aggregate of form body, it serves as the basis for suffering of sickness, aging, death, dying, and so forth.
김도 수배 미시 김래 탄도여 뭐도 고와도 로도 로지만 기분이 로로
It induces suffering of our future lives, and it becomes a vessel for both suffering and suffering of change.
거래게와 자자 선배츠 마야 동해지 지금의 탈들 출라요. 고도와
사제 소와 대화래 인중 지를 바라 치 대는 누지人心이 녀월렘베 풍군디 동해 주던 주변에 민의 겁나 칭교라스 다 동해 탈때 준줄래요 레스 교회 동해래 탄도성도 맞아요 교회 동해래 리시타와 못 이끌래요 레스 다 진짜인데 딱 근데 산제베 가서 우리 그게 취이 심지 취이 집제도 교회 이런 용무배 접방배다 간다 다 집제기 내고기 래 타르바스 샤데야가 타르바디 톰드글로 용알이야 좀 누지기 중에 싸운다네 다 대를 내버려 중에 로끼니 아니 대를 탐드글로 끼고요 그래서 어다 좀 누지기 중에 싸고 그래서 누지기 중에 써야지 레니지 샤완쟁이 겨와도 좋으래
얘는 돈 төрлөختний үед одоо зовлон бяцлахын одоо
And so here, with regard to the path of the beings of medium capacity, we meditate on the suffering of samsara. So when we talk about the suffering of samsara, of course, there are three types of suffering. Basically, the suffering which are called the suffering of suffering, the changeable suffering, and then the conditioned existential pervasive suffering. And so the first two types of suffering are something which even in the case of the first one, the suffering of suffering, the obvious painful experiences that we recognize as suffering, even the animals don't want that. Then this is something even the animals are aware of, being something unwanted. And then with regard to the second type of suffering, which is the changeable suffering, this suffering is something which even the non-Buddhist practitioners are aware of as being unwanted. And therefore, the suffering that we talk about within the context of the practice, practice for beings of medium's capacity is the third type of suffering, which is to say that suffering of conditioned pervasive existential suffering. And so this is in the context of Buddhist practice, what we are actually looking for is liberation or freedom from the samsara as a whole, and reaching, which is to say, to reach the goal of nirvana, enlightenment or liberation. And for that, what we have to consider is the conditioned pervasive existential suffering. And which is to say that the type of life that we have now is has been brought about by the force of negative emotions and karma. And so the life which is the result of these two, negative emotions and karma, is said to be a life of conditioned pervasive suffering. And so this is something that we have to think of getting out of, to be freed from, to reach nirvana. Training in the path of beings of great capacity, on page 43. Although you may attain mere liberation through the practice of path, the three higher trainings, it is not sufficient, because once you have attained liberation, although you may be freed from wandering in samsara, you will not have attained your final goal, as you will have only partially overcome the faults and partially attained the virtuous qualities. As a consequence, you cannot entirely fulfill the needs of others. Therefore, you should aim to achieve the state of Buddhahood, the fulfillment of two goals. Bodhicitta, the gateway of Mahayana. Buddhahood should not be pursued for your benefit alone, but for the benefit of all sentient beings. This is because just as you have fallen into the ocean of suffering, all sentient beings are in a pathetic situation, since they are also tormented by suffering. And there is not a single sentient being who has not been your parent, not only once but countless times. They are all kind to you since they have lovingly cared for you. Hence, you should generate bodhicitta in order to free these compassionate sentient beings from suffering and lead them to the highest state of non-abiding nirvana. You should generate bodhicitta through the sevenfold cause and effect instruction. With regard to this instruction, the recognition of all sentient beings having been your mothers gives rise to remembering their kindness. From this comes a sense of wishing to repay their kindness. From this arises a sense of attraction towards them. From this comes love and compassion, and that induces a great courageous resolution. From this arises the genuine courageous resolution, and from it comes bodhicitta. This is a group of 7 practices from which omniscience arises. Prior to these, you should cultivate equanimity, a sense of regarding all sentient beings equally. This is because if you have biased feelings of closeness, distance, or indifference towards sentient beings, then you cannot generate true awareness of all sentient beings as your mother. Even the little love and compassion you have generated will be somewhat prejudiced. Therefore, first cultivate equanimity. The method of doing this is as follows. First, observe many neutral sentient beings who have neither benefited nor harmed you in this life. Then contemplate that from their side they are equally in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, and think that as far as I'm concerned, since they have all quite simply been my parents, I should not divide them into 2 categories, holding some to be dear and benefiting them, and holding others as distant and hurting them. Instead, I shall regard them equally. Then think of yours, of your close family members in this life equally, and do the same for this who have hurt you in this life. Then generate equanimity with regard to all sentient beings. As there is no beginning to samsara, neither is there a beginning to my birth in it. Therefore, there is no place in samsara I can claim not to have taken birth. Nor is there any sentient being I can claim not to have been my mother. In fact, they have all been my mothers countless times. You do not recognize this because you have been going through the rounds of birth and death, but there is not a single sentient being who has not been your parents. Each time they were your parents, they nurtured you with affection, just like your parents of this life. Hence, they are absolutely kind. How did your mother in this life nurture you with kindness? When you were in her womb, fearing you might be harmed, she took care of you by protecting you, tending to you, and so on. After birth, she placed you on soft fabrics, took you in her arms, gazed at you with loving eyes, smiled at you affectionately, breastfed you with love, and held you close to her warm body. She fed you with her tongue, wiped your nose with her mouth, and wiped your bottom with her hands. When you felt even slightly sick, she regarded it as worse than her own life being at stake. She gave you all the wealth and possessions she had accumulated, disregarding all her hardship, happiness, and suffering, feeling it too extravagant to use them for herself. In short, she protected you from harm and benefited you to the best of her ability. Reflect on this and intensely feel her kindness in your heart. So these are about cultivating bodhicitta on the basis of sevenfold cause and effect instruction. What is explained in the Bodhicharya Avatara, Bodhisattvacharya Avatara of Shantideva in terms of cultivating bodhicitta, and it is given in accordance with the equalizing and exchanging self with others. So this practice of exchanging, equalizing oneself with others is for those who are of sharper faculty within the Buddhist practitioners. And the other system of cultivating bodhicitta is for those who are slightly lesser in their intelligence. And so in order to cultivate bodhicitta through the method of equalizing, exchanging oneself with others, you should study Bodhisattvacharya Avatara of Shantideva, a guide to the Bodhisattva way of life.
Бодхicitta
and also Nagarjuna's jewel garland or Ratnavali.
Гэж үзэх одоо үзлээ. Өөрийн одоо өөрийн үзсэн тэр үзэл дээр сож үзэж ингэж бодин сэтгэл үүсэх арга маань бол арай одоо тийм хурц ухаантай усуудад
Дүний гесан батан шисе. Дүний гесан батан шисе.
өөр бусдыг
Мэдээ бадат чам.
ингэж бодин сэтгэл бод сэтгэлийн одоо тайлбар одоо юм ном тэрнээс гадна чин тема одоо эрдний эрх одоо юм ном шаван хаагийн одоо чөнжүг гэж одоо бодисоотын явдал авах гэж энэ ном тэр үүдэн үзэх юм бол их тодорхой байдаг.
So we are on page 47. It says on page 46, you have generated bodhicitta and training in accumulating the training in not forsaking sentient beings for whom you have generated bodhicitta and training in accumulating merit. The moment you have generated bodhicitta, you have become an object of worship for all humans and gods. You outshine the hero and solitary realizer arhats in terms of spiritual lineage. You are saved from harm by epidemics and evil spirits. You are able to easily accomplish pacifying activities and so forth. You will not be born in the unfortunate realms and so forth.
The
next point is starts with, meanwhile, if you forsake bodhicitta, the ripening effect of this will be heavier than the moral defeats of a bhikshu. Hence, do not give up bodhicitta until you attain Buddhahood. And it goes on. And then third point is, since you have generated bodhicitta for the sake of all sentient beings, no matter how sentient beings behave towards you, think that on your part you will never ever give up on them. In order to, and fourth point, in order not to generate, but to advance bodhicitta, which you have generated this once, you should train in accumulating vast merit by making offerings to the three jewels and so forth. Next is training in the causes for preventing the loss of bodhicitta in future lives. As for the causes for preventing the loss of bodhicitta in future lives too, you should train in abandoning the 4 black practices and relying on the 4 white practices. The 4 black practices are as follows. First, since trying to deceive any honored person such as an abbot and spiritual teacher by lying to them constitutes black practice, you should never do such a thing. And so what these shows is that first one should generate or cultivate bodhicitta, and when you have a slight experience of bodhicitta, then you should actually intensify it or reinforce it through by generating bodhicitta by using certain rituals, and then you train in engaging in the practices of the bodhisattvas. And once you have that courage to engage actually in the practices of bodhisattvas, then you should take bodhisattva vows and then accordingly engage in the bodhisattva practices. So training in the practices of engaging bodhicitta has 6 parts to it. So there are these six training in the six perfections: perfection of generosity, morality or ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. Training in perfection of patience. When others harm you, it is incorrect to react with anger, since the harm they cause you is a karmic effect of the harm that you did them in the past. Also, since they are overpowered by anger uncontrollably, you should not harm them in return. Even a moment of anger destroys the root of virtues of the three fundamental practices accumulated over many eons. Hence, think, I will have not even an inkling of anger in my mind, and practice the patience of remaining undisturbed by harm in your heart of hearts. Next, training in the perfection of joyous effort. Next, training in the perfection of concentration. Sixth is training in the perfection of wisdom. So motivated by Bodhicitta, you should train the following aspects of wisdom: the wisdom of realizing ultimate truth, reality as it is, which eliminates the root of samsara; the wisdom of realizing the conventional truth, the wisdom that is engaged with the benefit of sentient beings, for the benefit of sentient beings with the help of former two wisdoms. The Venerable Master also says, wisdom is the eye through which to see profound reality, the path that eliminates the root of samsara, the treasury of virtue praised in all the scriptures, renowned as the excellent lamp that dispels the darkness of ignorance. Knowing this, the learned ones who seek liberation dedicate every effort to generate the path. How to train the four ways of gathering disciples, motivated by the intention of attaining brotherhood for the sake of sentient beings. First of all, through the practice of generosity, of giving material things, you should gather sentient beings around you. Then you should show them a smiling face in order to delight them, and having done that, make them feel relaxed by speaking gently to them. Then teach them the Dharma, such as the six perfections, in a sweet voice. Then let them practice the teachings. That is, let them follow the teachings according to what you have taught them. And so forth. So His Holiness finished reading the verse, beginning with single-pointed concentration alone is seen as powerless to eliminate the root of samsara, and finished that verse, which ends at page 55.
수수도 시럽이 잡아지는 동이 고아차 동이 같은 세면 떠고 있네. 뒤 나서 요목이 무슨 또 가고 그러셔. 다 동이도 항동계고요. 동이도 항동계발라. 신내면은 야가 말이. 자기들이 인도 내가 신내 가다 동이도 따고 공부도 첩지 신내주. 되네 신내 톱스네 에네 간다에는 수수도 시럽이 째네 에네 르시장의 대화기는 연배 크도라 에네 상동토바래. 되네 실라송지 좀바래. 다 대대비권에 에네 다 람라라고 그래 스테송하래.
그래나 언니 어떻게 와서 소르간 빌리 버리면
So, with regard to emptiness, understanding of emptiness, of course, understanding of emptiness can, this experience through insight, penetrative insight into emptiness, can lead you to nirvana as well as omniscient state of Buddhahood. But in order to reach the state of Buddhahood, that the realization of emptiness must be coupled with Bodhicitta. And when it is coupled with Bodhicitta, when you practice the realization of emptiness together with integrated with Bodhicitta, then the realization of emptiness, direct realization of emptiness, is what is known as the ultimate Bodhicitta. And so mere calm abiding practice will not lead you to cut the root of samsara, but it must be coupled with the realization of emptiness. And the special insight into emptiness is what leads you out of samsara. And so the view of emptiness should be coupled with the insight into emptiness. And then you, first of all, in order to have the special insight into emptiness, you have to develop the calm, abiding, single-pointed concentration, experience of single-pointed concentration, which takes emptiness as its object. And then within that calm, the single-pointed meditation, you do analytical meditation by using your wisdom. And then when that in turn brings about the special insight into emptiness, then you couple the calm abiding and insight focused on emptiness together, and then union of it is attained. And through that, you attain, coupling it with bodhicitta, you attain Buddhahood. So by placing the mind single-pointed on an object of focus, without wavering, the stabilized concentration of calm abiding is achieved. Moreover, while remaining in a single-pointed concentration, a firm stabilized concentration, unmoved from its object, the meaning of emptiness, reality as it is generated through the correct analysis of the meaning of reality with discriminative wisdom. Seeing this, think how wonderful it is to put effort into accomplishing the union of calm abiding and special insight, and making this as an object of your prayer, strive to imprint it within you. The Venerable Master says single-pointed similarization evidently brings meditative concentration, yet the correct analysis of the mode of being of things by the insight of individual investigation also generates meditative concentration that remains firm and unwavering. Seeing this, how marvelous are those who strive to accomplish such a union of
낭으로 녀난 거 잡아 멀리노 신소야디 자들이 이두산에 다디 냠샤나 같은 좀 주사지 다 냠샤 들려야 당 이두산에 아니 최제가 나와지도 샤르 이두산에 양고 된주고 나와 샤인 거라 다 된주고 나와 샤인 이두산에 나로 된주 캑베 녀어디기 아니 된주 샤인 이두산에 당 나야 메데 뭐 규모도 보인다 사바들 로 샤인 거야래 근데 인도에 가서 저도 규모대로 냠내사 디셔버리 다 저도 규모대로 냠내기 때문에 에노 탑지 잡아디지 탑지 차디지 러고요리 뜻들이
энэ бидүүний суртахал гэж түрүүсэн бидүүний суртахал маань өөрөө түрүүний шиг хоосон чимээ.
So with regard to the meditation on emptiness said here, when you meditate on emptiness, what happens is all the multiplicity of things kind of dissolve in your view, from your view. They disappear from view, and everything just kind of, all the mental fabrications or reifications stop. And so the seventh Dalai Lama says that when you do the single-pointed concentration meditation on emptiness, all the emotions happens, the different appearances and experiences, they all dissolve within this the nature of the mind, the Dharma dhatu of the mind. And so that is about when you, that is talking about when you stay in absorption, when you're totally absorbed in emptiness, all the different appearances disappear from your view. Whereas when you come out of that meditation, that absorption, then what happens is you can still see the multiplicity of things around you. And when that happens, there is also going to be the appearance of things having some kind of a true existence, independent existence. But then from your experience of emptiness, you can confirm that there is no such a way of existence of things. And therefore, you see everything appearing as if they have in true existence, but then they do not actually have that. Therefore, you see everything as being like illusion. And within that perspective, you do the other practices, which are called the practices of method part of the practices.
tuk nyamsu she, daso jinju namla tsu deshindu nyamsu longshi, je dombara zaba yin nyamsu je lama dudu komne, sungul hala, geshin, dombara, samla, ngosu rang rang, yi kuwe komne, dombara chago te, danyang je lame. Teta gyudu debi tishingi lamcho nigro kuwe tumunu chishin kene, kebe debinki, gana dene gyudu jaksu she shune yonso benga, deba te, tenjo toba, tenda dembara ches. Nanjo ngeja nyamne teta shi tanda yishi kyangzalo, rangi yilo, kobar chachida, gyaksan shelanga pemba cheweshi, gyawa jebe yonsu sabelo, kwale ngage shebe gyawa de, roha kunya nanamasa deminji shede merondu, nanjo ngete merondu, tamji jide shede, debsalo she sung damzhung nyabe kwanes, tenesinde tsuru kundu da, kyusha
So
pemu
page
kuwe cheba.
57, the verse says, in order to make familiar in my mind and also to benefit all other fortunate beings, I have herein explained in an easy manner the complete path that pleases the victors.
Rugun gyawa jebe lamjo
So
sho,
at the end of the text,
debe siji shimu lugundele shindu myoshin, tuandu nyewa kunjin
is
ching.
reading the colophon of the text. This essence of superfine gold, a guide on the stages of path and being of the beings of three scopes, is written in easy and comprehensible manner in conjunction with the Venerable Master's A Song of Experience. It is written at the persistent request of Chu Dorje, a great illuminator of the Dharma, who has immense faith and interest in this tradition, the great abbot of the monastery of omniscient Sherab Pelzang. It is written by Shakya Bhikshu Sonam Gyatso, who has shown signs of being blessed by the Venerable Master since a tender age. In his room, a swirling sunbeam in the palace of sublime. So we have now finished the teaching on the essence of superfine gold. So you should read the text and also meditate on the different points. Tomorrow we are going to have the highest Yoga Tantra initiation, so this is not for everybody, and so it's not like general explanation of the Dharma teaching. So ideally, those who have some experience of Bodhicitta and also have the understanding of emptiness, whether it's from the point of view of the mind-only school or Madhyamaka, and also someone who has some experience of emptiness and also having faith in Tantra. So in other words, even if you may not have genuine experience of bodhicitta and experience of emptiness, you should have some interest in pursuing the path of Tantra in future. So those of you who do not really wish to take this initiation tomorrow, you should may not come if you are not interested. Do not just think that there is an initiation of Vajrapani. So the commitment would be the 6th session Guru Yoga. Mainly, you are taking the Bodhisattva vows. Also during the initiation, you have to be able to keep these vows. the 18 root downfalls and this 46 secondary, and then in context of Tantra you should be able to also keep the 14 root downfalls and 8 gross infractions.
дуслаа. Тэгээ маргааш бол учрууны ван байгаа. Энэ ван
Tundulamen жижигсаачихгүй. Tundulamen жижигсаа.
энэ
Шимбагийн
ван
сүнс.
одоо хамгийн одоо дээд төвшингийн одоо тэр мост тарны ёсны одоо энэ ван байгаа.
So for the Mongolians, of course, they have come for this teaching and initiation. They are exception, but the rest of the people, if you are not so interested, or if you don't want to take the initiation tomorrow, you should not come. So for your information, because you have to keep the commitment after taking the initiation, the commitment that you have with the deity, the Tantra of Vajrapani, as well as the Guru and so forth. If you feel that these are all burden, you should think of not coming to the teaching. Sometimes I meet people who come to the initiations, and after taking the initiations, I find them complaining that they can't make such commitments to His Holiness, and this is not good. If you are taking the initiation, you should commit yourself to do the succession Guru Yoga, and then keep the Mahayana Bodhisattva vows and the Tantric vows.
Өнөөдрийн энэ одоо энэ ямар сэршин маашин номыг бол нэг өдрийн одоо дотор ингээ явсан. Тэгээд та бүхэн өөрсдөө энэ монгол хэл дээр ингээ орчуулсан байгаа. Энийг дахин уншаад тэгээд мэдгүй юм аа ханслаа. Тэгээд аль болох өөрийнхөө одоо боломжийн хэрээр энэ талаар ингээд судлуул сайн байна. Тэгээд бид нар өнөөдөр ингэсний энэ хэрэгэн ч гэсэн ирээдүйд та бүхэн өөрсдөө дахин үзээд ингэж ээж хэрэг нархаас нэг л өдөр сонсоод ингээд шууд хүн ойлгоод бүгдийг ингэнэ гэж байхгүй. Тэгэхээр одоо маргааш одоо ингээд ван болно. Ингээ ванда одоо маргааш ингээ морилцохоороо гэж.
So we'll say the prayer for the which is at the end of Lama Chamo. The prayer goes from the two collections, vast space that I have amassed from working with effort and this practice. For a great length of time may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom I was blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing well. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time, with my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined. May I expose this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by this gradual path to enlightenment, completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their spiritual children. May all humans and non-humans who eliminate this virtue and make things conducive for practice the excellent path never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he or she always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. So that is one verse. Last verse is long life for a prayer for the long life of His Holiness.